You ever hear a story that's just so weird, so chilling, that you absolutely have to pass it on? You know the kind. It always happened to a friend of a friend. For generations, these were the stories whispered in the dark at sleepovers. The tales told around a campfire that gave you that perfect little shiver of fear. They're basically the modern myths we tell ourselves. But today, these stories have found a brand new home. A place that's like a supercharger for gossip and myth. The internet. A place where a local whisper can become a global scream in just a few hours. And that's exactly what we're diving into today. How these urban legends have completely transformed in the digital age. All right, so here's the game plan. First, we'll pin down what an urban legend actually is. Then we'll get into the fun stuff, the psychology of why we're so hooked on these stories. After that, we'll see how they went from word of mouth to full-on viral sensations online. We'll look at the two sides of that coin, the internet as a global campfire, but also as a wildfire of misinformation. We'll even hold one of these legends up like a mirror to see what it tells us about ourselves. And finally, we'll peek into the future of folklore in a world that's getting weirder by the minute. So let's kick things off with the basics. What really makes an urban legend different from just, any old tall tale? Well, it turns out they're a very specific and very powerful kind of modern folklore. I'm going to go out on a limb and say this one rings a bell for pretty much everyone. It's a classic dare, right? Whispered in a dark bathroom at a sleepover. It's the perfect way to get into this because so many of us have felt that exact little jolt of fear. The details of the story, they always change a bit, don't they? Sometimes she's a witch, sometimes she was in a car crash, but the basic recipe is always the same. You've got a ritual to follow, a feeling of real personal danger, and this big emotional punch of pure horror. It's a story that feels just real enough to be absolutely terrifying. And it got passed down not from books, but from person to person, friend to friend. And right here, this is the official definition that just nails it. The power of an urban legend comes from how close it feels to us. It's that classic friend of a friend thing. It didn't happen a long, long time ago in a faraway land. Nope. It happened to your cousin's coworker. That little bit of distance makes it hard to check, but it's close enough to feel totally plausible. That connection. That's the secret sauce. Okay, this table is super helpful because it really clarifies the difference between a legend and its cousins, rumor and gossip. A rumor is usually just a quick, unverified bit of info, right? Like, hey, I heard they're closing the factory. It's timely and then it's gone. Gossip? That's all about talking about people you know to kind of enforce the rules of your social group. But an urban legend? That's a whole story. It's got a plot, characters, and a punchline, and it's built to either entertain you or, more often, to warn you about something. So if we know deep down they aren't really true, why do we keep telling them? Why do they feel so real? The answer is all in the psychology of it and what these stories actually do for us as a community. And this quote right here, it gets to the absolute heart of it. Urban legends aren't just random, spooky stories. They're more like society's shared nightmares. They're a way for all of us, as a group, to talk about the things we're worried about without even realizing that's what we're doing. The things that scare us in these stories, they're usually the same things that are making us anxious in real life. So when you boil it all down, these stories are doing a ton of work beneath the surface. They're expressing our fears about crime or new technology. They're acting as modern-day cautionary tales, like the one about the killer in the back seat of the car. That's really just a spooky way of saying, be aware of your surroundings. They reinforce our social rules by showing what happens to people who break them. And, of course, they survive because they're just really, really entertaining. Okay, so for most of history, a story could only move as fast as a person. But that has changed, big time. And this is where we get to the core of it all, how modern technology has basically poured gasoline on the ancient fire of folklore. I mean, just look at this timeline. You can literally see the acceleration. For thousands of years, legends moved slow, passed from one person to the next, changing a little each time. The printing press was a massive jump. It let stories get locked down and spread way farther. But the internet just removed all of the brakes. No editors, no gatekeepers. A story can be born, changed, and shared millions of times before anyone even has a chance to ask, wait a minute, is this real? And this number, wow. It just puts the sheer scale of this into perspective. We're talking about almost 4.6 billion people on social media a couple of years ago, and that's expected to hit 6 billion pretty soon. The potential audience for one story is just astronomical. A legend that might have taken years to cross a country can now circle the entire globe before you've had your morning coffee. So all this speed, this frictionless spread, it creates this huge paradox. The same tools that let us connect and build communities in amazing new ways are also the perfect tools for spreading dangerous lies. It's the two-sided coin of the digital age. So on the one hand, you've got this beautiful idea, the global campfire. Think about online communities where people create and share scary stories together. We can gather around our screens with people from totally different cultures and find out we're all scared of the same things. And that's the really optimistic take, right? It's this amazing way to build a worldwide community. You can watch a story that started in Japan get picked up and changed by someone in Brazil, and you realize that a student in Tokyo is worried about the same kinds of things as a retiree in Toronto. It can really feel like we're all part of one big interconnected human story. But, and this is a huge but, there's a much, much darker side. That same incredible speed can turn a story into a wildfire of misinformation. And once a fire like that gets started, it is incredibly hard to put out. Let's be honest, social media rewards sensationalism, not accuracy. So it's the perfect breeding ground for hoaxes that prey on our deepest fears. And this isn't just a game. The so-called Blue Whale Challenge, this awful urban legend about an online game that supposedly encouraged kids to self-harm, was linked to real-world tragedies. It's a terrifying example of how digital folklore can leap right off the screen and cause devastating harm. So if these legends really are a mirror to society, what do we see when we look into it? This is where we have to learn to read between the lines, because the messages are often way more complicated than they seem. Let's dig into one specific example. You might have heard some version of this one. A woman gets into an elevator and she gets terrified when a very large black man gets in with a huge dog. He suddenly yells, "Sit!" and she hits the floor, thinking he's talking to her. Turns out he was talking to his dog. And the man, who's revealed to be a famous athlete, finds it funny and ends up paying her hotel bill. On the surface, it seems like a nice little story about getting over prejudice. But this is where we've got to ask a tougher question. Is the story really about tolerance? Or is it sending a more complicated, maybe even more troubling message about what we expect from people in order for them to be accepted? And here's the twist. The woman's fear is only proven wrong because the man turns out to be wealthy, famous, and super generous. He's the definition of success. The story isn't asking her to be tolerant of just any person who looks different. It's reassuring us that this particular person is okay because he's assimilated perfectly. So the legend isn't really about accepting otherness. It's about acceptance only being granted if you fit in. Okay, so understanding this whole crazy landscape is one thing, but actually navigating it day to day, that's another. As these stories get more powerful and more convincing, how do we become smarter about what we believe and what we share? It really comes down to a few key things. First and foremost is digital literacy, just getting better at critical thinking. We need to normalize the simple habit of pausing and doing a quick fact check before we hit that share button. It's about building a culture where we ask ourselves, wait, is this true? Is this helpful? And look, it's a team effort. Tech companies, teachers, all of us. We have to work together to make the online world a little safer and a little more truthful. And this is the final thought I want to leave you with. The challenges we're talking about, they're only going to get bigger. With AI and deepfake technology, it's becoming ridiculously easy to create fake images and videos that look 100% real. Tomorrow's urban legends might be photorealistic videos of monsters roaming your neighborhood, created in seconds. The human need to tell stories about what scares us isn't going anywhere. But our ability to tell what's real from what's not, it's about to be tested like never before. The only question is, will we be ready for it?